we're joined by my broadband editor, Jan Vermeulen, via video link. A very good evening to Jan. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Now, before we talk about the MultiChoice merger, I want us to discuss the latest news from the National Treasury. In fact, we're told that malware intrusion on the National Treasury infrastructure reporting model website, and it's been identified on its infrastructure reporting model website, the online infrastructure reporting and monitoring system. Just break this down for us in layman's terms and what the implications are, especially for a national entity like National Treasury.
Yes, so it depends on how exposed that infrastructure was to the rest of their network, but this is part of a global issue that was reported this week it looks like Chinese state-sponsored actors that exploited a vulnerability found in Microsoft's SharePoint software. And based on the statement that you read, it's also the first time I've heard it. It sounds like this was part of that SharePoint attack. And looking at Treasury's statement, it seems that they've confirmed that this is indeed part of that SharePoint attack. And so it's not just Treasury affected. There's plenty of entities around the world affected. And this is certainly the first confirmed case I've heard in South Africa. Though we knew South African institutions were targeted, Treasury is the first government institution to confirm that one of their SharePoint servers got hit.
Do you think the Treasury's cybersecurity protection systems are robust enough to counter such attacks?
Unsure, but I wouldn't ascribe this instance to any particular kind of weakness.
Okay.
This, as I said, this vulnerability is something that's affected organizations worldwide. And plenty of people with very robust systems in place were hit by this. Unfortunately, it's the nature of this type of vulnerability found in critical software such as that supplied by Microsoft.
All right, Jan, this statement has come in literally a few minutes ago, so we'll try to, speak to some technocrats to break it down for us. But the Competition Tribunal, moving on to other news, has conditionally approved the Canal Plus MultiChoice merger. Could you break down for us what the key conditions are and how they might affect the final implementation of this deal?
Sure. So there's the public, all the commitments that you've listed in the segment before this. And it's all those public interest commitments. They're going to invest in the space. There's a fund, essentially, or a commitment of investment, several billions of rands in local content production, and then the moratorium on retrenchments and so on. So they had to commit to all those things for the transaction to be approved. In addition to the compliance with our local regulations. So, for example, the Electronic Communications Act says that a broadcaster can't be more than 20% controlled by a foreign entity, plus it must be 30% black owned. And to comply with those requirements, they've essentially spun out MultiChoice's South African entity, the South African license holder, into a separate thing, and then set up a very complex organization around that, a complex structure around that, to make sure that they comply with South African requirements. But it's also important, I think, for folks watching to remember, while we think of MultiChoice as a South African thing and DSTV as a South African thing, it's a multinational company that serves the whole of the continent. And yes, they're headquartered in Randburg. They're right here in South Africa. They're homegrown, but they're a multinational and a powerful pay TV player in their own right.
Well, Jan, while you speak of regulatory compliance, Canal Plus has been clear that this acquisition is part of its Africa expansion strategy. So what competitive advantage, if at all, does MultiChoice offer Canal Plus in the African pay TV and streaming market?
SuperSport is unbeaten anywhere in the world, I would wager. The coverage that SuperSport provides to the South African consumer, but also up into the rest of the continent, is second to none in the world. I don't think South Africans realize how lucky we have it with a player like that, where you can get all of your sports in one place. Elsewhere in the world, if you're a football fan in the United Kingdom, you have to subscribe to multiple services to get all the games. If you're a combat sports fan, a lot of the sort of big showpiece fights are pay per view. You have to pay, $50, $100, maybe even more per fight. And so Supersport just gets that stuff for us. And so the MultiChoice's strength in sports is a major competitive advantage. And then the other thing is that both companies, I think, are looking at what's happening in the broadcasting space, right? So besides the fact that traditional linear broadcasting is facing increasing pressure from streaming, the fact is their space in content production, in rights acquisition, is being encroached upon by massive tech companies. By Amazon, as an example. Google has YouTube, even though it doesn't necessarily do content acquisition and so on. It's kind of toyed with sports. Netflix is starting to get into sports. And then, we're talking about big content entertainment companies, video entertainment companies like Disney, that have their whole own service now, Disney Plus, and HBO, who have been a huge partner of DSTV, of MultiChoice, also have their own service in the United States. It's not come to South Africa yet because of the MultiChoice partnership that's still working out well for them.
Okay.
But at any moment, these partnerships could fracture, and those companies could enter the market directly, and instead of being a partner to MultiChoice, become a competitor, and to Canal Plus for that matter. And so the school of thought here is by joining forces, they stand a better chance against the threat of these massive media companies that's coming.
Now, practically speaking, what changes, if any, should MultiChoice's current DSTV subscribers and Showmax users expect in the short to medium term after this merger is finalized?
Yeah, in the short term, nothing. But what's going to happen in the medium term, that we don't know. Canal Plus, there's been some hints about what they might be looking at, but they've been quite tight-lipped about what kind of commercial strategy they've got in mind. If DSTV will just get to carry on as DSTV has always had, or if there are going to be major shifts, structural shifts to their products as well. And that we'll only learn more about, I think, after the deal is sealed and through.
All right, Jan, great chatting to you, man. Thank you so much for joining us. And I suppose time will tell, whether this merger will reduce market choice, whether this deal could result in higher prices for consumers, or even if it has the potential to improve affordability and content variety. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, MultiChoice has faced growing challenges from international streaming platforms, and I would imagine MultiChoice would hope this merger will accelerate its pivot from traditional satellite broadcasting to a streaming-first strategy. And time will tell what this deal will signal about the future of Africa's media landscape, especially for local streaming startups and smaller broadcasters. We just spoke to tech journalist and my broadband editor, Jan Vermeulen.